Hello there and welcome back to my channel where I make quality content that nobody really asked for. In today's video we have another cosplay related video and I'll be showing you guys how I made my newest / latest Star Butterfly cosplay. If you don't know, Star Butterfly used to be like my main character on my social media pages. Like, I was the Star Butterfly cosplayer. I've been cosplaying her since I was 14 years old and I'm 21 now and I still cosplay her even though she's not my main character anymore. I love Star Butterfly. She has a special place in my heart, and since she's so beloved, I thought, like, let's make a new one because a lot of my old Star Butterfly cosplays don't fit me anymore because, as I mentioned, I made them when I was like 14 or 15 years old. I'm 21 now. I don't have that same body, so I decided to make a new Star Butterfly cosplay, and it's actually one from a show because usually my Star Butterfly cosplays tend to be my original design, but I'm like, you know what, I want one from the actual show, so I picked the spider dress, which is her dark green dress. That one's my favorite. And when I made this cosplay, it was like perfect timing because I was finally going to meet Adam MacArthur as well. Adam MacArthur never came up to my area before because he always tended to stay in California in that area, but he never come up here to Washington. But he finally made it over to the Portland area, that's like 4 hours away from me, so I thought I can finally meet Adam MacArthur. I got this new Star Butterfly dress. It was perfect, childhood made, and since then I've met Adam MacArthur twice and I'm going on to my third time here in a few weeks, so I am back into Star vs. Evil. It's really great, and this video came out at a perfect time as well because it's going to be the 10-year anniversary of Star vs. Evil, so this is also my celebration video, so we get to have the Star Butterfly stuff to celebrate. So yes, this is how I made my newest Star Butterfly cosplay. Let's go. The first thing I'm doing is painting down my patterns. I'm using multiple different patterns because I like to Frankenstein everything to get that perfect look for my costumes. And the first thing I'm doing is painting down my skirt pattern. And this is just a simple circle skirt pattern I use all the time, basically for every cosplay. And I pin that down to my fabric. And I'm using cotton fabric for this because that's just my favorite material to use. Besides spandex, it's cheap, it's affordable, and it's easy to use. So I like using cotton. Just make sure if you're going to wash this costume, always pre-wash your cotton. And I got it in a dark green color because that's the closest color I could find for Star's dress. And I'm just cutting it out here. I used around 4 yards in total for my Star costume. And I did the skirt first because the skirt would take the most fabric because I use about 2 yards. And I can always use like scrap fabrics for other parts of the costume. And I'm sewing it down here, just using a normal straight stitch with a normal seam allowance with my sewing machine. And here how the skirt came out after it was all sewn together. And the next part I did was my bodice piece. For my bodice piece, again, I'm just using another pattern that I like to use, and I'm using a bodice that has more princess seams on it versus Star's because I think princess seams are a little bit more flattering, especially for my body shape because I am more busted but smaller waist, so princess seams tend to fit me better, and with princess seams it's easier for me to adjust things as well just in case the pattern didn't come out quite right. So for me it's easier to adjust princess seams than darts. I also hate darts because sometimes when you have darts you put on your chest kind of look like nipples, and that's not what I want. So I'm just cutting out all my fabric here, and I use about a yard for a bodice. You're wondering just how much I use. And again, you can tell when I Frankenstein patterns because some of them will be like newspapers because I get one pattern and then I change it, or it just looks kind of funky. But here's what the bodice looks like all pinned together. You can see all the different pieces because that's what a princess seam bodice looks like. And going to my machine and sewing down all those sides together basically. And I like to do like the front first and then the back and add the two sides together because I feel like if I do the front and then keep adding sides or just a different order, it would confuse me. So I like to do the front pieces first and then sew the back pieces and then put those pieces together. I did add a lining to this cosplay just because I felt like it needed it, but I only added to the bodice, and I just used some leftover fabric I had around my house. This gray one's from my fairy tale marinette, and I created the lining the exact same way I did the bodice. I did not change anything. The only thing that's different was gray fabric, not green, and I pinned that together. I went to my sewing machine and sewed those pieces together, and after I sewed those pieces together I also did a top stitch on the collar. And when I did sew my pieces together, I did leave the armholes unsewn because it's easier to flip it around that way. And it's easy to attach the sleeves that way, which we'll get into later on in this video. But the lining part is pretty simple as long as you make them exactly the same. And then after I attached the lining, I did attach the bodice to the skirt, so the end of the bodice and the waistline of the skirt I attached together. And for me, this is one of the most hardest parts of costume making in general for me. I really don't like attaching bodices and skirts together because I feel like it's a lot of fabric and sometimes it's kind of hard to sew and you have to sew it correctly. If not, it gets crooked. So this part I recommend take your time. I sure did, because it's easy to mess up or see mistakes. And then after I sew the two pieces together, then I worked on the sleeves. I am using a puffy sleeve pattern for my Star Butterfly dress because I love the look of puffy sleeves, and it reminds me of Prince Edward from Enchanted, so I'm just using a puffy sleeve pattern that I use all the time. A lot of the stuff pattern I use, again, is all Frankenstein, so they're all from different pattern pieces, so I do have to do some math to make sure they all fit together, but that's just the best way it works for me. And then when you're done sewing your puffy sleeves together, you gotta make sure you gather it so it gets that nice poofiness as I'm showing here. And make sure you don't pull the thread too hard or it will snap, and then you have to do it all over again. And then once I have all the sleeves done, I did adjust the armholes again because again, when you Frankenstein so many patterns together, you gotta make sure they all fit. So I cut these armholes to be a little bit wider to fit the sleeves, and once it's all fixed together, then I finished the last bits of my sleeve, and then I did a top stitch around the armholes of my bodice so the lining won't get all over the place. It also helps me sew on the sleeves better, and then after that I sew the sleeves on to the bodice, which is also very hard to do. Sleeves for me either are the easiest part or the hardest part, but since, you know, with puffy sleeves because you can adjust it and stuff, it wasn't too hard. And here is what the base of the dress looks like after I sewn all the pieces together. I think it looked super cute, and it took me about like 2 days to sew all together, so I did it pretty fast. And this part is probably not necessary, but I did it anyways. I did a hem because one thing, I'm short, so I always like to make sure I make it longer than adjust it to my shortness and being it too short. But I think I didn't need to do a full hem like I did here, like, you know, doing like the folded edge and stuff, because I am going to add like detailings on the bottom of the skirt that would cover the hem, but I did it anyways just in case, because I said I'd rather do it and then not needed to do it anyways versus I should have done it and didn't do it. But here is what the hem looks like, and then I just sew that straight stitch all around the edge of the skirt. But again, you don't really need to hem your dress. I wish I didn't. That probably would save me some time. But again, when I was making it, I just so used to making sure everything stays correct. And then after that, I added a zipper, just a normal invisible zipper that was dark green, and I went to my machine and sewed that zipper together. This is the moment when everything starts becoming difficult in the costume, because the dress part, super easy. I did that super fast, I had no troubles with it, and I started doing the detailings on the dress, the little scallop part on the bottom of her skirt. Now I thought that would be easy, but I was wrong. That was extremely difficult, and it took me a long time to figure out exactly how it should be done, and it was a whole process, but I did figure it out, but it was a struggle.
Hello. So we're on Star, right? And this costume should have been finished a long time ago, but it's not finished because I messed up on the skirt multiple times. The detailing her little scallops, sorry for all this mess, these scallops right here, they're a pain in my behind, and because of their pain in my behind, I am behind. The con is next weekend, and this costume is not even close to done. I am slowly panicking because I ran out of material because I messed up, so I had to buy more because that's fun, and I'm already broke, so I'm like, oh great, now I have to spend more money than I want on this costume, and then more time, and then I went to Joann's. I was in a rush because it was late at night, and then this lady decided to buy the whole floral department of Joann's, and they had to get every single flower decor, and there's only like one cashier, and I'm just like, I only have 4 things, and it was like a nightmare. And then now I'm about to go work on it again, trying to retemp these darn scallops for it not to be the right color. I mean, it is the right color, but it's not the same color as my previous fabric, so hopefully I can make this fabric I bought, because originally I bought 2 yards of the turquoise fabric we're going to use for the detailing. I ended up using like almost all of it, but I have some left over, So I still can do the detailing part. So I bought more fabric for it not to be the right color. So hopefully I will have enough fabric of my new fabric. If not, I don't know what I'm gonna do. So hopefully this works out. Hopefully, because right now I'm low-key panicking. Con Crunch, gonna love it. Cause like I'm making Star Butterfly because the voice actor Marco Diaz, like not who's Marco Diaz? Marco Diaz is coming to Komori Con. That's the sole reason why I'm going. So I need Star Butterfly, and it's just not working out. So I'm like, the whole point of going to the convention is for Starfish Evil. I don't know a Starfish Evil costume. I don't know what to do.
So, after many days of crying, panicking, con crunching because I was behind making this cosplay because of this scallop part, because I couldn't figure out a solution that would work for me, and I had to keep going back to Joann's to buy more supplies, mostly this turquoise fabric, and every single time I tried to buy it, it was always a different color because no dye batches. It was so difficult, but in the end, I did figure out something, which was I grabbed my pattern piece I used for the skirt, like the main circle skirt pattern, and I just traced a scallop on top of it to make sure everything fits the skirt bottom well, because like if I use the same pattern, it should fit like how you like if you do a lining and use the same pattern for the lining, it should fit the main bodice. So that's basically what I did here, and after I did that, I pinned it down to my fabric here and I started cutting out with some seam allowance, and this part of the costume was not perfect. I would definitely do it again differently, but at this time I was stressed and I was con crunching, and I was like, well, if this thing's attached and it doesn't look terrible, that was the main goal. So I cut out all my pieces and then I started to pin it down onto my skirt here, as you could see. It was easier for me to pin down this piece when the skirt is laying flat on my table versus my mannequin, because most of the time I like to pin stuff on my mannequin, but I want to make sure nothing was bunching or not misaligning like it always was. And again, even though this was hard, it did work out in the end. I did make sure to fold the edges over that hem part. So again, that was mentioned, the hem was not necessary. And here what it looks like after it was all pinned together. Not perfect, but attached. And then I did sew it. The way I attached it was, first I sew it from the bottom, so basically doing a hem on it, because again, as I mentioned, I just folded it over, and that's how it was mostly attached for the sewing part. And then after I was done sewing it on to the bottom of the skirt, I grabbed some fabric glue, which I love using fabric glue, and I glued the rest of the scallop part to the bottom of the skirt because I did not trust myself trying to sew on top of the more curved and pointy parts, and I thought that wouldn't look good too. I thought adding the glue will help make it look a little bit more cleaner, and I think this glue also helped with the fraying as well because it is cotton and cotton fray. So that's how I attached it. Is this the best solution? I don't know, but did it work? Yes, and so far it held up pretty well, surprisingly. So slay on the glue. Worked better than sewing, so that's proof that you don't have to sew everything and glue everything down. And after I was done with that part, I moved on to the next part of the turquoise pieces of the dress, which was these like arm ribbons for the bottom of the sleeves. So I just cut out a piece here that was a rectangular piece, and then sew those edges together and flip it inside out and attach it to the bottom of the sleeves, and that's how I created those sleeve ribbons. And then I worked on the collar. It's a Peter Pan collar, so I just traced how wide my dress color was and made a Peter Pan collar based off that, just freehanded that pattern. And considering I think I never made a Peter Pan collar before this, I kind of just eyeballed it. It came out pretty well, so I was pretty proud of myself for that. The other parts of this dress, turquoise parts, like the arm ribbons and the collar, came out fine, but those darn scallops did not. But at least these parts worked for me. I don't know what I would have done if it did not work. Probably cry some more and probably just gave up and cry more. Just cry. And then after I got all my pieces cut out for the collar, I went to my sewing machine and just sew that together and flip it inside out as well and put it down to the collar here. And I did a very similar thing I did to how I attach it to the scallops to the bottom skirt, which is just folded over the edge there and then a top stitch over it, and it came out super clean. I liked how it came out, so slay on that. And here what it looks like pinned together before I stitch it all. You can see I have trust issues for how many pins I use to pin things down because I trust nothing. And again, I did that top stitch over everything on the collar and the arm ribbons. or sleeve ribbons. I don't know what you call it. I just call it arm ribbons. After the glue was done drying for the bottom of the skirt, I started finishing off the rest of this dress, so I added some glitter fabric paint on top of the scallop part to help hide those raw edges. It also helps it not to fray and makes everything look a little bit more cleaner, and it's sparkly, so it's a little bit more extra, which I liked. And I did add some glitter ombres down on the bottom of the skirt just because I'm an extra person and I can always use more glitter. And after I was done with that, after all that was dry, I started to add some rhinestones. Now, I was not planning to add rhinestones on this dress just because, I don't know, at first I just wasn't into it, but then I was working Disney on Ice while I was making Star Butterfly, and I was inspired by all their sparkly little costumes, so I decided to add rhinestones, and I'm really glad I added the rhinestones too, because it also helped hide some of the seams from the scallop, because I had to do the scallop pieces in multiple pieces, so there is some seam lines, and those rhinestones also help cover it. So that's always my advice when it comes to cosplay, is you can always hide your mistakes with glitter. So that's what I'm doing here, and the rhinestoning didn't take me that long. I think it only took me like one night, and it just dried overnight. And I like to hand glue them on with rhinestone glue versus the hot fix, because I think I will burn myself. So I just added lots and lots of rhinestones for that extra sparkly touch. Not only did I add it to the bottom of the skirt, but I also added to the collar here, which I'm showing. And this part was a little bit more difficult just because I did on my bodice, so I had to make sure the rhinestones don't fall down while gluing, but I also added some to the Peter Pan collar as well as the arm ribbons. And once I finished all the rhinestones, that was basically the end of the dress. I basically finished it at that point, so I moved on to the next part I needed to do, which was the boot covers. And I used to hate making boot covers just because I feel like cosplay shoes are just a pain in my behind. But since I make so many now, I feel like I'm kind of like the boot cover master. So I kind of just made a random pattern. I kind of just traced the shape of Star Butterfly's shoe around the base of the shoe I'm using. And I'm using some tennis shoes. Again, I used some white cotton to create the base for it, and I sew all those pieces together. Then I hot glue those covers to my shoes, and then once those are attached together, I started making the details of the boots. So I got some felt because I felt like it, but I like using felt for my boot cover detailings just because it's easy to use, and I feel like it's more doable because it's a thicker fabric, and you can hot glue it on easily because felt and hot glue is like peanut butter and jelly. And I also got some stick-on felt because why not? It's also very adhesive, and start creating a lot of different star shapes off that too. So yeah, so I basically used pink felt and yellow felt and white cotton for this part, and I traced out lots and lots of stars because she has a few stars around her shoes, and this part was really fun. And this is the first time I think I used on stick-on felt too. I think the reason why I bought yellow stick-on felt because they didn't have normal yellow felt, but this worked out really well because I didn't have to use hot glue. I could just stick it on right to the boot covers. And considering I made this costume like 2 years ago, those stars are still on. I think I only just put like hot glue on the very tips of the stars when it got a little worn out, but they stick, man. These stick on felt. So yeah, I cut out, I forgot how many stars, but it was quite a few. I think I used almost that whole sheet. And again, with the stick on felt, I just stick it right onto where I needed them, and it was really nice. And again, one thing with using felt too is the raw edges don't look bad as well. Like if I use cotton for the detailing versus felt, I feel like I have to cover up those raw edges like I did with the dress, but with felt, you don't really need to do that. So that's really great. And again, I hot glue all that down because if you have hot glue, you can basically make anything when it comes to cosplay because that's all you need is hot glue and a dream. And after that, I decided to be a little bit more extra and add some more detailing. So I grabbed some glitter paint, fabric paint as well, which is black this time, and I just did an outline of all the edges to make it a little bit more cartoony. And just because that wasn't enough for me adding that, I also added more rhinestones. I feel like I don't really need to do that because they all came off in the end, but I added rhinestones to the boots as well just to add the sparkliness to match the rest of the cosplay because again, why being boring when you could be sparkly? So I added lots of rhinestones on the boots, but mostly just on the detailing part. And yeah, so I love rhinestones. If I could add them, I would. And I kind of just add them everywhere I thought it was cute, but not too much. Because sometimes I feel like when you add rhinestones, if you don't do it correctly, it could be a bit much. So I would finish the boot covers at that point. I move on to the last part of this costume, which is making her spider necklace. For the spider part, I am using foam clay for its body. I love foam clay. It's one of the best things to ever be invented for cosplay. And then once I got the shape of the body down, I grabbed some toothpicks for its little arms, and I just kind of stick that in the foam clay, so while it's drying, it will stick together. This is why I love foam clay a lot, so that way I use for the base of the body. And for the toothpicks, I made sure to chop off the sharp ends of it because we don't need to hurt anybody or ourselves while in cosplay. And after that was dry, I did a nice layer of black paint because it's a cute little itsy bitsy black spider, and I just painted all over. And while that paint was still drying, I did add some black holographic glitter on it to make it a little bit more extra because it's me and I love how this looks. And then for its eyeballs, I just grabbed some 2mm foam and cut some circles and hot glue it on. Very simple, and I thought it looked so cute. And then before I add the pupils on it, I did add its attachment. So what I did was add some hot glue, I got some ribbons, and I glued it onto the back of the spider. And to secure it, I grabbed some black felt and glued hot glue on top of that so the ribbon won't come apart. And this always works for me. I always do this when I had to attach something like this. I love adding a felt backing just because I feel like it make it more secure. And then once that's all nice and secure, I finished the rest of the spider, which was adding the pupils to the eyeballs. So I just got some black paint and dropped some circles on it. Pretty simple, but I love how the spider came out. It came out super cute. It was my favorite part of the cosplay. And once that was done, the cosplay was done. So let's go on to the reveal. I'm going to show you guys a few shots of what the cosplay looked like on my mannequin once it was finished. So this way it looked like the moment it was done, when it was nice and clean before it got beat up from conventions. And here what the cosplay looks like on me with my hair and makeup done. And here we go. Here's the final look. I love how my Star Butterfly cosplay came out. So here's my final thoughts because I had this costume around in my closet for a while. And when I first finished this cosplay, I didn't know how I quite felt about it because I had all that trouble with the bottom of the skirt. And I didn't really like for the longest time how the bottom of the skirt came out because I was just struggling so much. But in the end, it all worked out. And I remember when I first made this cosplay, I was like, I don't want to add what I call my Tiffany touches, but to be something extra on this costume. I kind of want to be plain in my mind, like I want to be a little bit more realistic. But since I've been having trouble with the bottom of the skirt and some things not quite working out the way I want, and also when I was making my Star Butterfly cosplay, I was working at Disney on Ice. So I was so inspired by all the glittery, girly costumes that when I started messing up on the skirt, I'm like, you know what? We gotta have a little Tiffany touch to it. So I put like rhinestones and glitter all over this outfit to help, hide those mistakes but make it pop out a little bit more. And I'm glad I did that in the end because I feel like this costume is a little bit more me and a little bit more Star because I can see Star adding like rhinestones to her outfit. So overall, I'm very happy with this dress. And I love it a lot. I love it a lot that I wore it more than I thought I would. Usually I have this rule of like, when I make a costume, I have to wear it twice. And I said, I knew I was going to wear this when I met Adam MacArthur for the first time, which was amazing. And then I'll probably wear it to another convention. I wore this costume so many times that I'm surprised it's not worn out by now. So yes, it feels good to finally have a new Star costume because I used to cosplay Star all the time when I was like a young teenager, and those costumes don't fit me anymore. So I thought like my Star days were done until I made this costume, which is like so nostalgic for me. So I really love how this outfit came out. And again, I made this outfit to, like, for the sole purpose to meet Adam MacArthur because he plays Marco Diaz, and I wanted to meet him for the longest time because Star vs. Evil was like my life for the longest time. And the fact that I met him and he was amazing, he was so nice, one of the sweetest interactions I ever had, and he loved my cosplay so much. It was one of the first things he noticed. Like when we were all standing in line, he's like, "That Star Butterfly cosplayer is amazing." He was pointing at me, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I've been noticed!" And he loved my costume so much that he took pictures of it on his own phones and posted it. So it was great. But yeah, so not only I love how the cosplay came out, but I have great memories with it. So even like over a year later, I still love this cosplay because I think it's so cute, and it definitely had hit its time. It's getting a little worn out now because I wore it so much, but I still love it. So I just want to pop in here really quick to say happy 10-year anniversary to Star versus the Force of Evil. I'm posting this video around the anniversary time because I love this show so much. Again, as I mentioned, this show used to be my favorite show before Miraculous. Like, before Miraculous, it was Star versus Evil. I was obsessed with this show, and it was just like my life for the longest time. It helped me get through high school, and I just have such fond memories with this show. It has a special place in my heart. So I'm so thankful that I still can make these cosplays 10 years later, and I'm so thankful that I still can post Star vs. Evil stuff and people still be interested in it. Because again, even though I'm the Rex Ladybug lady and sometimes Teen Titans lady, depends who you are, but before all of that, I was Star versus the First Evil. So it's kind of nice to revisit this old love that I have for the show, because even though it's not my main show anymore, I do have other interests. Again, it's still very special to me. So happy 10-year anniversary to Star vs. Evil, and I hope you catch me in my next video, which is how I do my Star Butterfly makeup. And actually, I'll be making a new Star Butterfly cosplay here soon, because once again, I'm meeting Adam MacArthur for Anime Washington, so there'll be a new Star Butterfly cosplay. So you want to see my newest one, make sure to head over to my Instagram so you can see real life updates of whatever I'm working on, like that Star Butterfly cosplay. I'm also be making Shady Bug from the Rex Ladybug Paris special, so make sure you always follow me on Instagram because that's how you can stay up to date with my latest project and myself. So again, happy 10-year anniversary to Star vs. Evil, the love of my life for the longest time, and I hope I can still continue to love it 10 years more, because I tend to have phases. But again, I'm gonna leave you here, so stay a little weird, stay a little wild, because we ain't from around here, and goodbye. I'm Star Butterfly from Star versus the Forces of Evil, and you're watching Disney Channel. Boo-doo, doo-doo, ding.